You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Well, you probably have seen Mississippi Outdoors television, and if you have, you've seen our guest's work through that camera lens. He is videographer and TV producer, Scooter Whatley, on the show today.
This episode of the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks.
You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. If you have watched Mississippi Outdoors television at all, probably a lot of it, in the last 2 decades, a lot of it, you've seen it because of our guest today. He was there in the woods, in a boat, walking around, stomping around, sloshing around in a swamp with a camera on his shoulder. He is Scooter Whatley on the show today. Scooter, what's up?
Hey, man. Good to be here, Matt.
It's good to see you too. Yeah. On this side of the camera.
It's rare.
It is rare?
Real rare, yeah.
How many times have you been in front of the camera in your TV
You count on probably one hand.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I shy away from it too much, but I just don't get much opportunity, so I'd rather be on the other side.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So in that intro, I said, in the last couple of decades, and I'm a longtime fan of Mississippi Outdoors TV. And when I met you, it was a little bit like meeting a celebrity because every time I'd watch it and the credits would scroll, there's videographer Scooter Whatley, editor Scooter Whatley. How long have you been involved in it?
I started back around the early 2000s, so it'd be around 20, 21 years I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun.
So in that amount of time, is there any way to even, guesstimate the number of video shoots you've been on?
It's really not, Matt. We added up last year that I was on about 70 different events. Okay. And so you times that,
Times 21 years.
Yeah, 50 to 70 a year. Yes.
Wow.
It adds up.
What is sort of the story for you and how it started? Like what led you to be that guy that's out here filming hunting and fishing shows with a camera on your shoulder? How'd you get there?
Yeah. Well, I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad and stuff, but coming through college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to maybe be in electronics or computer science, and that was when computers just getting started and these big old monstrous machines and paper trails. And
like it'd cover up a whole wall, one computer.
And I couldn't handle that. That wasn't for me. And I tried electronics. I couldn't even solder 2 wires together. So, but my roommate was a film major, and he wanted to go to California and be a director. And I said, okay, that's cool. And he said he needed me for his character for some of his skits he did for class. So I was, one of his cronies. And so that was pretty neat. And I asked him about it. He said, well, there's a TV division as well as film and radio. Maybe you might lean to television. So I did that, and I took some TV classes. And when I was a senior, I had to intern either at WDAM or with Southern Miss doing sports. And so I got to film and work with this hotshot freshman quarterback named Brett Favre. And so that was a real challenge, following his passes and stuff. So, but after that, it just, I don't know, I went into news and WLBT for a while. And Bert Case, he knew I liked to hunt and fish. So one year he wanted me to film a deer hunt, or he'd do a story on deer hunting. So I took this big monstrous metal tripod and this huge camera to the deer camp and got in this big box blind and started filming all these deer come by. That's when we were running dogs and horses. So you had this big herd of deer that would come by. Uh-huh. Well, this really nice buck came by that I probably should have harvested. I probably should have. But I was working, I was doing what Bert wanted. So I filmed the deer. He ran out on the sandbar and stood and posed for me. And I got back to the station, and Bert was just beside himself because he couldn't believe that he actually had a real story with a real nice deer in it. Uh-huh. So that's kind of how I got started, really. So every year he wanted me to do it, and I wasn't near as successful other years, but that one year it was nice.
How about that? So I hear you mention a couple of people that were instrumental in sort of your path. Your dad, who introduced you to the outdoors. We hear that so much at this table, that it was a dad or a granddad or a friend that introduced you to the outdoors. He encouraged you. And then a few years later, Bert Case, of all people, encouraged you on that, capturing that deer on camera. And then it sounds like the rest of his history after that.
It was. I stayed with them 10 years or so and went over to MPB for a while. And after I was with MPB, I went on the road with the Outdoor Channel and did big game hunts for a company out of Clinton, Mississippi called Chasing the Dream. And so we chased it for about 2.5 years, big game hunts, elk, mule deer, just you name it, we did it. And so that really kicked it off. And during the off season when I wasn't doing that, I would come back and do contract work for Mississippi Outdoors. Okay. So when that played out, I just came to them and I said, look, I kind of need a job, can y'all use me? I said, yeah, we've seen your work. It's decent. So we'll give you a try. So that's how it worked out.
That's how it worked out. Now for people that don't know, okay, so all these years involved in producing the Mississippi Outdoors TV show, you film it, but that's not all you're involved in, right? In terms, is it editing? Is it coming up with ideas, contacting, setting up stories? It's not just showing up with a camera.
Yeah, it's all that. It's trying to think outside the box and have different shows, in your mind what you want to do, and field produce it. You have to make the calls. You have to come up with ideas and ask your boss. Can I float down the Mississippi River for 3 days, or can I do a non-consumptive bald eagle piece? It's not hunting and fishing. You just got to pitch those ideas, and most of the time it's you're good to go. But so and then you got to edit it. You got to, if you want to edit your own stuff.
So you primarily edit your own.
I used to. Now we have in-house guys that do it, but certain things that I'm really passionate about, I'll try to edit myself. But we used to have to do it all.
That's great. Okay, the 3-day trip down the Mississippi River. John Ruskey sat in that same chair you're sitting in. You were on that episode of Mississippi Outdoors down the Mississippi River with him in a canoe with a camera for 3 days?
3 days. It was 4 days and 3 nights. It was 100 miles.
100 miles.
From Rosedale, I believe Rosedale to Greenville.
Is that the longest amount of time you ever spent on one shoot? 4 days?
Yeah, it is. It is.
What was it like?
You do deer hunts for 2 days, but that was the longest. It was fantastic. The sunsets were beautiful, the sunrises. All the crew knew what they were doing. They fed us well. They campfires, and one guy from Austria was there. He brought his guitar and his dog, and it was just a good old time. Yeah. It was nice.
How do you keep fresh batteries?
That was a challenge. You just kind of just load them all up, keep them charged and shoot sparingly. Don't shoot everything, right, but shoot things that are pretty and creative. Yeah. And I had that same issue when I went to Africa in 2014 and filmed a safari. I was over there 23 days. So I had to take a whole case of tapes, and a battery charger, of course. So it's a constant thing you have to keep in the back of your mind. Do I need to shoot this because I got not much battery left? So you got to work it out.
Sure,
it works.
Okay, you just said tapes. That's one big change over the years, I would think, is going from linear actual tapes in a camera to now it's just all digital, right?
Right. Back when I was in news, we had beta tapes and a beta recorder that hung on your shoulder, and this cord came from the camera to the recorder, and you had 2 units. Well, then that went away, and it was just all one tape. And the tape was kind of big, and then the tapes got smaller and smaller. And now we shoot on SD cards, and it's a lot easier.
Yeah,
it is.
What might be the most difficult situation and environment you've run into in all these years of Mississippi Outdoors TV?
I would say a duck hunt that's about 20 degrees. Ice on the water, wind blowing. And you got to get out there and you just got to do it. But, breaking ice, and then you get a hole in your waders from a piece of ice, cutting your waders. That's some of the most difficult elements that we've dealt with. Yeah. Heat's one thing. Dove hunt, heat, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. But I would rather deal with that than wading through water, breaking ice, and trying to get a show and keep the camera from freezing up, batteries from dying.
Yeah.
Keep everything from getting wet. Yeah, that's more of a challenge.
Camera batteries drain a little quicker when it's cold?
Oh, absolutely. They do. And you try to keep them in a pouch that's kind of insulated that holds heat in, and that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I was at Giles Island one year and was filming, and it was really cold, super cold. Wind was blowing, and these deer were running everywhere, and my battery just gone. And I pulled out another battery. It was only half there because it had gotten cold. And so, I missed a decent deer because the elements.
Yeah.
But wasn't anything you could do about it.
And it's a lot like hunting.
It is.
A lot like it is. You deal with a lot of things that you might not foresee. You just deal with it when it comes when you're out there.
You gotta think on your feet.
Yeah.
You gotta try to piece the story together, in your mind. It's like pieces of a puzzle. You can shoot a deer or shoot a duck first daylight, but that's not gonna make the show. You gotta have all these other elements. You gotta have people talking, you gotta have in and out of the water, in and out of the deer stand, riding. You got to put the pieces, and the pieces don't fall together. You got to piece them together in the edit room.
In the edit room.
They don't all work simultaneously.
Yeah, the hunts and the fishing trips don't happen in nice little 10-minute segments, do they?
They do not. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days to get a show. And it's really not good to kill a deer or a duck or a turkey in the first 2 minutes you're sitting there. Because then you got to come up with stuff, So I like the longer shoots.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite and I know that's almost an unfair question for as many shows as you've done, as many filming, trips you've been on. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite that stands out?
I have a couple with Melvin Tingle, a couple of favorites. We turkey hunted one time and the wind was blowing so hard. We couldn't hear each other in this room. It was, and
really?
We sat out there and called. I knew wasn't anything going to happen. And we got ready to get up and leave. And we looked down the road and here comes the gobbler. I mean, his feathers are all flying back. He's leaning into the wind trying to get to us because he heard us, but we didn't think he could hear us. And Melvin ended up harvesting that bird, in a driving windstorm. And that to me, I saw the expression and the emotion in his face. He really loved that shoot.
Yeah.
That was good.
The people that you've met over the years in the show, I mentioned John Rusky, you mentioned Mr. Tingle. That's sort of at the heart of the job, I would think, is the people that you've interacted with over the years.
It is. The outfitters around the state are really nice. They're hospitable and they're fun to work with. Tallahatchie Hunts and Terra and Giles and Wildlife Incorporated, Bo Prestige, and all that group. They're just great people. I love get back to see them from time to time when I can.
Yeah. Have you found that, the satisfaction that you personally get out of doing this and seeing the product once it airs on TV, is it the same now as it was when you started, 20 years ago?
It's a little more now. When I first started, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. So I was just trying to, fill the time up with video and interviews and stuff. And I didn't edit a whole lot back then, so I didn't see much of my final product. Okay. But as time went on, I got to appreciate it more. And once I would edit my stuff or see it on the air, it was real pleasing.
Yeah.
It really was.
As far as your crew and the people that you work with at Mississippi Outdoors, a lot of the same people over those years? Has there been a lot of turnover?
It's changed some. It's changed. I worked some with Melvin and Mar Hartman.
Yeah.
And she's now with, I think it's Energy. But then you had, Karen Jones, you had Janice Parker, you had all these people that have come through. But, Amanda has been stable.
Yeah.
And Kevin's been stable. And they're great to work with. So, I mean, Amanda left for a little while. We had to fill the spot. But when she came back, we said, yeah, we want you back, because people recognize her, people liked her. So it's worked out well, yeah.
If you had to choose a trip, a particular kind of hunting trip or a particular kind of fishing trip, you could just pick one on a day when you want to do what you want to do, what would you pick?
I would pick a blue marlin trip out in the ocean, 150 miles out, 200 miles out. And I did one of those. I was at Pickwick and was finishing up a fishing trip. And that next day, that afternoon, the boat was leaving, going out on a blue marlin trip.
On the coast?
Yes.
And you were at Pickwick?
Yes. I had to drive, a tad above the speed limit to get there in time. And when I got there, they're getting ready to pull out. I just grabbed all my gear and just ran and got on the boat. And we went 2 hours out from there, just.
In one day?
Yep.
From Pickwick in extreme northeast Mississippi to 2 hours off the coast of Mississippi in the same day.
I'm telling you, it was a long day.
And no airplanes involved. That's pretty impressive.
No. And then we fished all night, and caught some beautiful blue marlin, got a great show out of it. So that blue water trip is quite rare, but it's, it can be very beneficial. It can pay off.
You said fished all night.
Yeah, we fished all night. Went out to the rigs. Well, we did blue marlin during the day.
Okay.
But we fished for other things around the rigs at night. The rigs are lit up like big Christmas trees. Have you ever seen them?
Yes.
Yeah. So we fished at night, and then you just nap and sleep when you can. And then when the reels go off, you jump up and do your job.
Yeah, do your job. Scooter, as you talk about these stories, one, I feel like we could sit here and pull stories out of you for hours. So we'll have to do it again. But two, I can just sense there's a young person listening to this going, wait a minute. He gets to do that for a living? That's his job? Fishing, hunting, turkey hunts, Delta, coast.
It's very fortunate.
I wonder if at any point when you were young, if you ever dreamed that this is what you would be doing for a living.
I did not. My dad was a civil engineer, worked for the Corps of Engineers during the summers, doing surveys, and had no inkling that this is what I was going to do. Like I said, when I went to college, I was just going to do something that I kind of halfway did in high school, little computers, little electronics, and I had no idea that it would turn out like it has.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Well, and it's still great. The show is still Mississippi Outdoors. There's a classic sort of look and nature to it. Mm-hmm. Not that it's the same as it was 20 years ago, because there have been changes really in every thing, the technology and all that. So if you were to speak to how the production and the show itself and things has changed over the years, how would you describe that?
We've refined the show at least 4 times, I think. We had a live band do the song. And then on the coast, we had a band on the coast do the song. And the look has changed a good bit. And we're going into our 35th season now. So this year we got a whole new look, a whole new branding, whole new everything, new song. And it's going to look great. And I try to keep coming up with different and unique type stories to do. I want to do a fishing kayak trip with the Mississippi Paddle Mafia, where they kayak and they fish some and they spend the night and do all that stuff with the early morning sunrises and paddle. I want to do a show like that. Just some unique things I hadn't done before.
Okay, so a kayak. So you'd have to be in the kayak. You'd have to be maneuvering yourself while operating all the video.
Well, I have a little P-row that a gentleman gave me many years ago at the Wildlife Expo, and it has a little motor on the back of it, and it has foot pedals that you operate it with a toggle switch and foot pedal, so you can steer it, and you can do the power with a little toggle switch. And so I can just keep up with them while I'm doing all that with my feet. I got this on my shoulder. It's a little tricky, but I've been able to figure it out.
I would think so. Have you ever dunked a camera in the water?
Fortunately, I have not.
Hallelujah. We should probably knock on a little wood.
Right. I have not, but now you jinxed me and it's going to happen.
Chip will erase that. It'll never see the light of day because we don't.
It's fine. I've dropped them. I mean, cameras are breakable,
sure,
but as far as in the water, I have not yet, Matt. Thanks.
Yeah. This may be a little bit of a repeat question. I don't think it is. You kind of touched on the conditions for the turkey hunt with Melvin Tingle and the wind blowing and all. On the other side, what are some of the simpler shoots and types of video shoots for an outdoor show that you've run into over the years?
Well, let's see. We do a little bit of everything actually. The quail hunts at like Longleaf, they're fairly structured, but they're really exciting. And sometimes there'll be a pheasant, mixed in, and it just scares everybody to death. But it's great. I mean, everything's in order, and they're fun. They're really fun to do.
And that's with a dog.
With a dog.
So I guess from a camera and hitting that record button standpoint, it's almost like the dog kind of cues you, okay, something's about to happen.
Right. The dog will go on point. Then we'll get in position behind the hunter, or maybe another camera guy on this side to get a wide shot, and then I will get the tight shot, or vice versa. So that the look is different. But the dog lets you know that something's about to happen, so you better be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are fishing trips, in terms of producing those and filming those, are they as much of an unknown as a hunting trip or more? I'm just wondering, like, because as a fisherman, you know, some days everything's right, you don't catch anything. Other days it's wind blowing and raining and you catch fish.
Yeah.
It's very unknown.
It is very unknown. We've been fortunate enough to go with people that know what they're doing, know the barometer and know the weather. I went with Lee Penton and Jarius Norwood a couple years ago, and Jarius's clip is still on the Open for the Show. That day was just magical. I mean, Jarius caught a 10-pounder, and they put back a couple of 6 and 7s, you know, and so certain days, you know, all the stars line up, but you know, there's other days where you don't get a show. And I've been doing this long enough, you know, if you don't get a show, so what? You just don't get a show.
You just don't get a show.
It just doesn't work out every time.
So I wonder what, over the years, and again, this is a really big number for you, but would it be 2 out of every 3 shoots work out and you get a show, or would it be more than that, more than 2 out of 3?
We go, like I said, I'll win about, I don't know, 70 times, and we probably got shows about half the time.
Okay.
So a little more, maybe a little less than half. You know, we do 13 weeks, and each week, I think that's right, 13 weeks, and each week has 3 shows in it. So, you know, add that up, and that doesn't count the ones that didn't make. So it's about half, a little less than half.
Yeah. When you run into people in the outdoor community, hunters and fishermen, and when they find out that you work on Mississippi Outdoors TV, how often do they ask you to come with them and bring a camera?
It's fairly often because they watch the show, you know, and they want to film their son or daughter with their first hunt and stuff, or we're in a big lodge and we'd like, you know, for you to come to see our new lodge and help promote it, you know, so we get more members, I guess, you know. So, but it happens quite often, really. It does. Yeah.
You mentioned Brett Favre, Jarius Norwood, some celebrities that you've been able to be out there with over the years too. And I'm sure those are not the only 2.
No. There's several. You know, there's Pete Pons, you know, and there's a lot of them actually. There's, after 20 years, it's tough to remember all of them. But one of my favorite trips was going to Africa with Chris Gers and Chuck Cage and his wife, and we did a lot of harvesting. But there was some lion episodes and some leopard episodes that were little close calls, you know. But it was fun. It was really fun. Those people in Tanzania were just gracious and just hospitable. They were great people. You
were there for the better part of a month.
Yeah, 23 days total. Okay. And their game wardens over there are a lot different than ours over here. They shoot first and ask questions later for poachers. There were several times when the game warden would just take off, run down the creek. You'd hear a couple of shots. And you go down there, and he said there were some fishermen down there fishing illegal, so we had to run them off. And they left their rods, their shoes, their machetes. They just hit the trail. So they don't play over there. But they were real hospitable to us, you know, over there trying to hunt.
Well, it sounds like kind of a once-in-a-lifetime sort of
adventure.
It
definitely was. It definitely was. It was really fun. Yeah. It was a great trip. So. Yeah.
And those were part of Mississippi Outdoors.
Yeah. We aired I think a 2-part series on Outdoors on that one. So there's a lot of stuff out there.
How do you store? Was that at a time frame where you're using tapes, or was
It was tapes.
And so, I mean, in 23 days and those, how many tapes did you go through?
I took a case of tapes. And I think a case holds 20 or 25.
Wow.
I used them all.
Used them all.
I used them all.
Well, and I guess, you know, you've flown over there, you're in Africa, you almost feel like you want to get as much as you can to bring home.
You do. It's about a tape a day, so you have to, you know, measure that out. You don't want to shoot 2 tapes in a day and then come to the end of the trip and you don't have anything left for the flight back, you know. So
for you in this job, Scooter, when you wake up in the morning, your feet hit the floor, kind of what gets you excited? What makes your heart pump? Like, what's the motivation in it for you right now?
Well, I started working on a little different series with our law enforcement officers, so that's put a spark in me. You know, following those guys around a while, and again, just coming up with new ideas. I mean, you can turkey hunt and deer hunt and dove hunt all year, every year, but you gotta have something that the people want to watch different, So if you promote something different, that you're doing anything that's not consumptive, people they eat it up, Or if you maybe had never crow hunted before, if you get a crow hunt on there and people say, hey honey, they're crow hunting over here. I've never seen that before. That's what motivates me, is to come up with new and different things that people haven't seen before and would be interested in.
That's one thing about this podcast too, that for me has been fascinating, because like Chip works so hard and guests and the different wide ranging of guests and line them up. And so for me, I've sat in this chair and it's, again, people will think Mississippi Outdoors or MDWFP and they think hunting and fishing. Mm-hmm. But even this podcast has been a great example of just how wide ranging the topics are and how broad the experts are out there. Mm-hmm. But even after 20 years, I guess that's it. It's like the challenge is, what's that new story? What's that new thing we hadn't done?
Right. Like bears, we used to never do bears. And now, we're doing, bears with our department and tagging them and stuff. And that's fantastic. Now we're doing alligator nesting. We're doing things that we've never done before. And so it's something new almost every day.
Have you ever had a time where you were a little afraid? Like you had a close call, like the hair starting to stand up on the back of your neck a little bit?
I think you're leading into something you already know about, Matt. Yes, I was on a bear call, a bear tagging, and they were using a new wake-up drug for these bears. And they told me, they said the old drug takes 15, 20 minutes. They're just going to flumber around, and you got plenty of time. This new drug, they wake up, it's on, okay? So be ready. So I'm setting up a GoPro, she's out and she's moving around, she's out, and I'm about a little further than you are, and I got it just about right, and I was just about to hit the button, and I look up and her eyes pop open, and when her eyes popped open, she popped up and ran straight at me, and all I had time to do was get out of the way. And they were standing there like laughing. And they were like, we told you she comes alive immediately. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I didn't know it was like immediately. I thought at least she was going to roll over and then get up. And I, thank goodness I was kind of speedy with my old age, but they filmed it on their phone and it was hilarious. And she did kind of run. She ran and she just kind of eased my direction. And then she went off in the woods, but it was a little scary.
Little bit of a close call.
Too close.
You didn't want to have to form tackle a big black
bear.
No. Or vice versa.
No, I'd have dropped and rolled and just try to get out.
Well, and you got some good buddies over there. They got the camera phone rolling just in case something happens.
Just in case, for insurance. Like, we told him.
Who needs enemies, right?
That's right, when you got friends like that.
Friends like that. Well, that's great. And, there will be more like that. More stories ahead. I guess...
There's close calls.
For you, is there any end in sight?
No. I'm loving it. And even if I could retire today or tomorrow or next week, I wouldn't. Yeah. I love it. It's fun. The adventures are just, they're all so different. And, I like new stuff. So.
Yeah. What's the saying? If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm. I do feel like that. Yeah. So it's been a great journey for the last 2 decades. I hope to keep it going.
Last thing, for any young people listening that might think, you know what, that's what I want to do. I want to do what he does. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're junior high, maybe they're high school. What's your advice to a young person?
I would advise to just, if you really want to do this, take some classes in school. Whether I don't think they teach much camera in high school, even though I did teach a class of high schoolers, and yes, they do teach it in some schools, but take some TV courses, some camera courses, and then just get out and shoot. When you go to the deer stand or to the fishing lodge or anywhere, just shoot. Just shoot. Try to shoot pretty pictures and be creative, with the birds and the water and the sunrise and the wind and stuff, and just try to shoot and just practice, just to see if you're gonna like it.
And learn to tell the story.
Yeah, learn to tell the story. I think you will interview your parents, interview your dad, things like that.
Yeah.
And then you'll have that forever as well. So
That's right.
just practice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Scooter, it's a real pleasure to
Enjoyed
talk
it.
to you. Pleasure to meet you and get to know you over these months doing the podcast also. And can't wait to see what you bring us on Mississippi Outdoors TV in the future.
Thanks. New season starts in September. It's going to be exciting.
Yes, it is. Looking forward to it. He is Scooter Whatley, over 20 years with Mississippi Outdoors TV and still going strong. Thanks for listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast, and we'll see you outdoors.